this week on LinkedIn, I wrote a message on a post. So basically, I'm following the Prime Minister of Belgium, Alexander De Croo. I'm a big fan, and actually he posted he made this like his presidential speech, prime minister speech, and I actually wrote a comment, and the comment I make was, so when I observe like what kind of what's in place to solve the COVID crisis, right? The measurements in place to solve the COVID crisis. Actually, Singapore, which is a bit more, I think, autocratic, I don't know how to call it, has very similar measures as Belgium. Basically, we wear mouth masks, there's like bubbles of 5, this kind of stuff. We have 0 cases here. Okay. Why do we have 0 cases? And there's one big difference. And the difference is they can control the borders. They can control who comes in. Basically, nobody comes in until the problem was resolved. And now they're gradually opening the borders to new countries that have also reduced their COVID spread. And everybody that comes in is being tested, put 2 weeks in quarantine mandatory at own expense, right? So this thing. And so I hear my sister went to Spain a few weeks ago. So she fly back. She was in a red zone, I think. She fly back. She comes, she lands in Brussels, no control at all. She just walks on the plane, goes Belgium in. Like, you can just cross borders. Like, there's no control whatsoever. And the problem with this is, and that's exactly also the problem about, like, should we be a state? And, like, are we states and federalism is, if you have all independent democratic entities or just entities like that make their decisions, and you get nowhere in this kind of situations, right? Because you're not allowed. So you have been decided that the borders have to stay open in Europe. However, you do not have control to put a European measurement in place on COVID measures, right? Measures, and that is a problem because your neighbors can say, like, Belgium actually is a bad kid, right? They say, oh, we don't really care, and then the people they go on a ski holiday in Italy, and yeah, you have a fucking we gotta slip all this fucking out because it's such an amazing discussion. Yeah, but you have a big problem at hand, and it's unable to solve. And so I actually wrote him a message to say, so I am actually pro-European because I do think from a world point of view, you need to create like one power block. I mean, if you want to mean something in today's world. However, within a pro-European context, you should be able to say, like, yeah, I decide to, when you want to enter Belgium at all the borders, there will be controls, and if you don't have a test, you don't come in, and if you come in, we'll put you in test facilities.
100%.
In like quarantine facilities. You can say this. Why does nobody have the guts? Like, I do not understand. Like, maybe it's against European regulation around borders? Maybe you're not allowed to do this.
Well, there's an agreement called the Schengen Agreement. Schengen is the agreement that you are allowed to travel everywhere without having a passport or with just one European passport, and you don't need visas and stuff like this. However, there have been exceptions already to Schengen, if I'm not mistaken, and a very notable one was around the terrorism attacks, I think. Between Belgium and France, there were some limitations, or at least consistent checks, etc. Now, all of these European rules can be bent and broken, like, for certain circumstances. And there's actually a very interesting one. That's the European Commission. I think it's the European Commission. Or maybe all the European institutions, they had to agree. The moment COVID hit, they made blanket exceptions to the state aid rules for companies. And that means that normally, as a government, the Belgian government is not authorized to give a lot of money to a Belgian company at random without due process. They have to go through like all sorts of checks to make sure that the Belgian government isn't like corrupt and giving it to a corrupt friend or something. You know, I mean, in some governments around Europe, that's like a concern that's quite strong. Now, suddenly at the start of Corona, it was like, well, actually, you need to be able to mass produce masks, mass produce respirators, all this kind of stuff. You don't have time for due process. Just like pay whoever can do it. Pay as much as you need to, break the rules. Fuck it. This is an emergency, you know? And this is like a very nice, like decisive move. You know, they've put some big financial measures in place to say, okay, we're going to build these massive stimulus packages to pump into the economy. They've done this really quickly. And they've broken they've bent the rules. There was no real precedent for this. This didn't really exist. So when everyone agrees on it, this stuff is possible. But